So last year I lost 65 pounds in 2025 from January to November. But in over Christmas, in just 3 weeks, I gained 20 pounds back. And we are now most of the way in February, and I've only lost 9 pounds out of that 20, and I still have 11 pounds of extra weight since my lowest in November. And to find out what was going on in my body, I thought I would turn to science and go and get a DEXA scan, which showed only 60% of the 11 pound gain is actual fat and 40% is lean mass. So this data has completely changed what my plan was for the next 12 weeks. And in this video, I'm going to deep dive into the report and explain what my new goals are for the 12-week cut, starting from now. So just quickly, I've had to move the camera to my side because normally the camera is in front of my monitor and then I won't be able to read the report. So that's why you'll now see me from this angle. But as you can see, this is my DEXA scan report that I got on Friday the 20th of February. I did two things here. So the DEXA scan, which is the main part, and also a 3D body scan, which is basically you stand on this cylinder and it does one 360 rotation and it gets millimeter accurate measurements of your body. I won't go into that too much, but what I do use this for is I do look to see the changes between scans to see if my muscle is growing in the right places, or when I was fat, I was losing it in the right places, etc. So since the last scan, which was 28th of November, before for the one on Friday, the area I care most about at the moment is building my chest, and I have a 1.20 centimeter gain in there, which I'm happy about. It shows my left bicep and my right bicep are completely identical in size, which is great. And actually, I gained a couple of inches on my waist, right? And that was fully to be expected. I gained 11 pounds with 60% of that being fat, right? We skip legs because no one cares about leg day. And here is the main part of the video. So this is the coolest part as well. So on these skeletons of me, it's a scan of my body. Blue is bone mass, the red is lean mass, and the orange is fat. So on the left here is my scan in November when I was a lot smaller. All my glycogen stores were depleted from my muscles. And here on the right is the scan from 3 days ago on last Friday. Fat around the love handles has grown. Is where pretty much all the weight gain went. You can also see a V-taper coming on in my upper body, which is great. That's what you want. So if we go into the data, so I've gained 2.1% body fat, as already explained, which I was pretty happy with. That it wasn't higher. I gained 2.69 kilograms in fat mass. But I also gained 2.22 kilograms of lean mass. So about 6 pounds of fat and about 5 pounds of lean mass. So I was really happy with that. I was worried that the whole weight gain was just fat. So this really does go to show that you should not just solely trust the scale, and you should look into other body measurements, especially measuring your waist if you are unable to either afford or get to a DEXA scan near you. The one type of fat which is the most dangerous is your visceral fat, which is just here. So even though I gained fat, all my fat gain was subcutaneous fat, which is the fat you can grab on the outside. The visceral fat is the fat around your organs, right? So if you have a high amount of visceral fat smothering your organs, you have a high risk of diabetes, heart disease, etc. Because your body is just fighting to survive at that point. When I get down further in the report, you'll see that I used to have a lot more visceral fat. So I'm really pleased with where I've got to. But I'm even more pleased to see in this report that I've gone down even more despite having 11 pounds of weight gain. So moving on to lean mass. So the good thing about DEXA scans is that it doesn't just give you lean mass and fat mass of your whole body. It cuts it down into portions and sections of your body, right? So you go down to your arms, your trunk, which is your chest and abdomen area, and your back, and then your legs. So you can see my legs are pretty identical. My right arm's got a little bit more muscle than my left. But the biggest win here is that I had an extra kilogram of lean mass in my trunk area, so my chest. Most of the fat mass was gained in my trunk as well, which is where my abdomen and my love handles are. So this is just a snapshot of all my scans I've had over time. So I had my first one in 2019, but my heaviest one was March 2023. Right here, the second one in, you can see I was quite fat. I had a lot of fat mass, and even my scan in March 2025, which was last year after my knee surgery, I was pretty fat still then. I was still 30% fat, right? And interesting, the first scan, while I see it, is this was just before COVID hit, and when I was determined to get into shape, and then bam, I had to go outside. What a time to be alive, eh? My £65 loss last year. Obviously started in January after my knee surgery, which I'll have another video on. And then I got 3 scans last year, so 24th of March, then in June, and then November. Now, in between June and November was when I started going back to the gym. So before June, I was literally just walking on my walking pad. And to lose weight, I did not go and strength train until June. It's kind of my biggest regret, because if I went to the gym at the beginning, I would have a lot more lean mass and would probably be a lot leaner already. But you can't go back in time. You can only fix going forward. But since June, I've been hitting the gym quite consistently, which I'm really pleased about. So on the visceral fat side, like I said, my heaviest scan in March 2023, I had 145 centimeters squared visceral fat reading, and anything above 80 is considered really bad in the algorithm behind this DEXA scan. So 145 was quite high and was a health scare, a health concern. I managed to get that down to 104 for March, and then down even further in June, and down to 40 in November, which is very good, and then down to 38.8 from Friday just gone. So I'm really pleased with the visceral fat, and on the chart here, pretty sure you can still see that. You can see that my lean mass is going up again, and hopefully during this next 12-week cut, the lean mass will either stay the same or go up slightly while the fat mass goes down. That is the plan. Moving on to BMI. Obviously, I don't believe in BMI, so I think BMI is great for the general population, for those who don't lift weights, because it takes your height and your weight and comes up with a magical number, which is used to identify if you have a health risk or not, mainly for insurance. However, if you lift weights, go to the gym and have muscle, then BMI is not a good number at all, because it just takes weight and height and doesn't take into account body fat. Right? So even though it would be nice to be a normal BMI, I'm not worried about being in the overweight class, because I would love to be as heavy as I was in March 2023, but I had 12 to 15% body fat. You know, any guy would love to be that big, I think, and that would be classed as obese. Right, so BMI is pretty flawed, but I can cover that in another video. Moving on to the body fat, so I'm just above average in my age for body fat. So I'm 20% now. My plan is in 12 weeks time to get to 15%. So there's going to be another DEXA scan at the end of this 12-week journey, which is just before my 31st birthday. It's going to be very, very interesting to see a direct comparison between this DEXA scan and the one in 12 weeks time. I am planning on getting it into 15%. And I'm going to go for the numbers in a second to show you my new plan for the next 12 weeks, which is directly based on the data that this DEXA scan has provided me. So the perfect thing, and the reason why I get DEXA scans, is to give me a accurate-ish indication of what my lean mass is and how much fat I have to lose, so I can produce a science-based plan in my cut, and I'm not going in blind. And on the visceral fat again, there's another chart here which shows where I'm at. I'm on the normal side, so I'm by the 20 centimeters squared. I'm 6 out of 100 on the good side visceral fat, so I'm really happy with that. And on this part, it's just talking about your lean mass index. So your lean mass is basically how much lean mass I have in my body relative to my height. I am above average on this, which is great. And the appendicular, I think that's how you say it, lean mass, shows how much muscle your arms and legs have relative to your height. So it's just another way to measure muscle ratio is in your body. And again, I'm above average on here, so I'm happy with that. And on the DEXA scan lean mass, this chart shows the distribution of my muscles between the arms, trunk, and legs. My arms have got above average muscle. My trunk, I'm just above average. And my legs, I'm below average, which makes sense considering I had major knee surgery January last year, which takes about 2 years to fully recover from. So I don't mind about my legs being on the lower end. I do know my legs are not small or skinny at all. I have quite a bit of size on my quads, for example. So I'm not worried about my legs being lower on the scan. And this chart just shows about how much lean mass you got and fat mass you got in different parts of your body. I do not use this, but it's good to know if you are interested in where you're gaining muscle, where you're gaining fat, etc., and the distribution across your body. And what DEXA scans were actually designed for is to measure people's bone density. So it does include this as part of the scan, although because I'm always on the average for my age, I don't really care about this. If this come into one of the zone 2s or 3s, then obviously I would care quite a bit, but I kind of skip over this normally. As long as it's in the green, I'm okay. And it's the last part of this report that I find very useful. It gives you a longevity health scan. So basically, how likely are you to live without getting any heart disease or any mortality, illnesses, etc. The idea is to be 100% on this on the scale, which I was on my last scan. I did hit 100%, but I went down a little bit because I gained a bit of fat, right? So I am only just slightly above the target. So the target is 2 to 5 kilograms per meter squared of my body, and I'm 5.62. In my next scan in 12 weeks time, this will be back in that 2 to 5 range, and I'll be back to 100% on my longevity. So what does this mean, right? What does this report mean for me? How useful is it for my 12 weeks cut that's coming up now? So what I've done is I've plugged the key metrics into a spreadsheet. So I've taken my fat mass, my lean mass, and my body fat percentage, and I put it into the spreadsheet and worked out what I need to lose each week, which I'm going to show you now. So because I use pounds rather than kilograms, I've translated the kilograms on the report into pounds. The reason I use pounds is because it makes you feel like you're losing more psychologically. 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds. So if you lost half a kilogram in a week, that doesn't sound as good as losing a pound, right? Or losing 2.2 pounds when you lost a kilogram. It just helps me psychologically. No other reason to that. So I took my current weight of 184.1 pounds, the body fat percentage from the report, and my fat-free mass. So it's in my whole body, my lean mass plus my bones equals my fat-free mass, which I then tapped into this row here. So currently I'm 20.8% body fat. And what I've done is I've worked out what weight I need to be for 20%, 90%, 18.7%, which was my body fat percentage in November, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, and 12. So this is assuming my lean mass or my fat-free mass does not change at all. So I either keep it the same or I gain a little bit, which would be the ideal scenario. But as I'm going to be in a deficit, my number one goal for the gym is to maintain my fat-free mass. And to do that, I need to hit the gym 3 days a week and lift heavy. If I skip gym sessions or don't lift heavy enough, then there's a very good chance that I'll lose fat-free mass. And what that would do is basically move the goalpost further away from me. So currently, if I was to hit 15% body fat, which is my current goal for 12 weeks time, I currently need to hit 171.5 pounds. If I lose lean mass, then that would be harder to achieve. 15% would no longer be 171.5. It would be back to maybe 165 pounds as the target. Let's say I lost the full 2.2 kilograms or 5 pounds of lean mass that I gained since the last scan. Then to get 15% body fat based off that numbers, that was 165 pounds. So as you can see, having more muscle means that you can get to a lower body fat percentage at a higher weight, and it's easier to sustain at this point. So moving on to the 12-week plan, which is over here. So my starting weight is on this row here, so it's 184.1 pounds. If I can lose 1% of body fat every week, I will be 12% body fat for my birthday in 12 weeks time, which will be absolutely insane. 12% is my long-term goal for the summer this year. However, 15% goal for 12 weeks time, which I think is a bit more achievable. So therefore, I am going to aim to lose between 0.75% and 1% every week to get to 15% body fat on my birthday. If I lose 0.5%, it will go slower for sure. I'll more likely retain more fat-free mass. However, I have no room for error. So if I track 0.5% every week and 1 week I have a bad week, then that will make my 15% unattainable. Whereas 0.75%, if I get to 15%, currently this is between week 9 and week 10. So I could afford 2 weeks of slippages. Whereas on 1%, I can afford 4 weeks of slippage or 5 weeks of slippages, reach the same body fat percentage. So therefore, I'm aiming to lose between 0.75 and 1% of my body weight every week. And science has said, source, trust me, bro, you can lose 1% of your body weight per week maximum before you start losing your fat-free mass, assuming you're on a high-protein diet and you're lifting heavy at the gym at least 3 times a week, right? So yeah, so this guys is my 12-week plan. All this data is science-backed, based off the data points out of my DEXA scan. I'm very happy with the results of the DEXA scan, despite having gained 11 pounds, knowing that 5 pounds of that is lean mass and only 6 pounds was fat, means that I actually can achieve 15% body fat at 171.5 pounds as opposed to the 165 pounds from the scan in November. Therefore, it is a lot more achievable and sustainable, and I don't have to be as aggressive to get to that number now. I can take it easier, I can take it slower, and therefore I can sustain it better. So now the 12-week cut begins right now. I'm already a couple of days into this week, and all the weekly check-ins on a Sunday is now going to pivot towards this plan. I'm going to track against these numbers, as you can see here, and I'm very interested to see what my DEXA scan in 12 weeks time will say. I'm really hoping I'm at least 15% body fat. Anything lower would be a bonus. If you've got this far, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It will really help me more than you know. And if there is anything in the report that I did not go over or that you did not understand, please comment down below and I will address it in a future video. See you soon.